Hi everyone, my name is Bee. Welcome back to my channel, and today I am just talking about my summer TBR. This is a hugely ambitious list. I have so many books on my to be read stack right now, and I don't expect to get through all of them. I'm just trying to see how many books I can read in the summer before I have to go back to teaching in the fall. And I just want to, kind of give you an idea of where my head is at. Honestly, if I get at least one book from each stack read, I will be happy. Let's start with the first stack. The first stack is a very short stack. However, it is an important stack because these are the books that I want to read that are the sequel in a series. The first is Heavenly Tyrant, and this book is the sequel to Iron Widow, which I read a couple of years ago. This is such an amazing series. I am so excited. The sequel to Unwind, called Unholy, I have heard interesting things about the continuation of this series by Neal Shusterman. I really loved Unwind. I'm interested to see where they take the sequel because it's supposed to be like a 4 or 5 part book, and then there's some short stories that go along with it. If the sequel does not capture me, though, I will probably not finish the entire series, but I'm willing to give the second book a try. The next book has been highly requested by most of my students, Arch Enemies, the sequel to Renegades, which I read 2 summers ago, and I did a whole vlog about it. I was not a huge fan of Renegades. It was a superhero book, young person superhero book. I did enjoy it, but I also thought that there were some things that were taking me out of the story. I didn't give it a really awesome rating when I read it. However, I have had multiple students of mine tell me that I should read the sequel and I should give the rest of the series a chance because apparently it is very good. The last book on my sequel stack is the sequel to Witchlings. Witchlings I read last November. I absolutely loved it. It is a middle grade novel about young girl witches in a town doing things to, strengthen their friendship bond, but also like save the town and like have a wider message about, doing good. Absolutely could not stop reading the first one. I loved it so much. I went over the moon about it. I found out there was a sequel. I got the sequel, and then I just found out there's a third book in the series as well. So I'm going to continue the series. I really loved the first one, so I feel like the second one is going to be great. So now that I've just told you I have several sequels to get through, I also have a stack of first books in a series that I want to start. Again, hugely ambitious. Do I think this is going to happen? Probably not. But these are the books that I want to start reading, and they are a part of a series. So I do expect to read more books after I finish these. The first is Partials, which is a series about, like, I want to say it's like a pandemic of some sort that like kills half the population. And there's this girl, she has this weird immunity to it, I think. I'm not entirely sure. My friend told me about it and gave me the full synopsis. And at the time I was like, ooh, yeah, that sounds great. And she gave me the book, and now I feel obligated to read it. So I'm going to start this. I think it's a trilogy. This is the first book in the series. The next book is called The Forgetting, which is, I believe, the first book in a series, or at least the prequel to The Knowing. I did a whole video, did a whole little short about this, explaining my book curse, which is I always buy the second book in the series before reading the first book. So I ended up getting a copy of the first book in this series, The Forgetting, which I'm going to read, and then read The Knowing. But I don't actually know if that's the way it's supposed to go. Let me know if you know. But anyway, I'm going to start with the first book. The next one is a book that a friend sent me as well. The Millicent Quibb School of Etiquette and Mad Science, or something like this. This book is by Kate McKinnon, who is a comedic actress who's been on SNL and several other very funny roles. And she wrote this middle grade book. There is a second book in the series so far that has been published, and I think they're supposedly talking about a third. but this is the start in the Millicent Quibb School of Etiquette series. And then the final one is a middle grade YA book by V.E. Schwab called City of Ghosts. I have the first two books in this series on the shelf. I can't remember what the second book is called, but this book is about a girl who is dead, but she's like solving the mystery of her own murder, I think, with the help of a medium in this world. I actually don't know a lot about any of these books, any of these series that I have on this stack. All of these books from this stack and the last stack are books that I have on my shelf at school, and I want to read them during the summer so that way I can kind of like incorporate them into my shelves at school and kind of talk about them with my students. This next stack is actually a part of the rest of the books that I plan to incorporate into my class library. But these are just standalone YA books that I want to read and share with my students. First is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This I think is going to be very easy to read. I know some of my students read it this past school year, and it's a novel written in like a poetic form. So I do think this will be pretty easy to read. Plus, some of my students really loved it when they read it this past school year. So I'm interested to give it a try. The next book has been on my TBR for quite some time. It's called The Impossible Knife of Memory by Laurie Halse Anderson. I am a huge fan of Laurie Halse Anderson. I have loved everything I've read by her. So I think this will be interesting. I don't know that much about it other than the main character has some kind of like trauma that she's overcoming and like dealing with PTSD from it. So I think there's an interesting message to be said in this story, and I'm interested to read it. The next one is kind of an interesting one I found at the Scholastic Book Fair a couple of years ago. It's called The Lord of the Fly Fest, and I think it's a retelling of The Lord of the Flies with girls. And this has been happening a lot lately in media with Yellow Jackets, and then there's like a couple of other, I think, YA books that have come out with this kind of idea. And I'm interested to give this one a try. And then the final one is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I haven't read John Green in probably a decade. This book has been on my shelf for quite some time. I took a break from John Green after I stopped teaching middle school the first time. And there just were not a lot of books coming out that I was really interested in by him. This was one of the ones that I ended up getting on my shelf, and it just kind of sat there. I never really went forward with reading it. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try getting into John Green again. I know he's had some new books come out. I'm gonna see if this one works for me, and then incorporate it into my shelf. This next stack could go to my school bookshelf, although I would rather it not, just because I might want to keep most of these books on my shelf. This is my stack of graphic novels / manga that I want to try and read this summer. The first book is Heartstopper. So many of my students love this series. So many people that I have talked to have loved this series, including the TV show. So I need to get into it. I bought this at the Scholastic Book Fair, and now I have no reason to not read it. The next book is called Rainbow, which is another graphic novel I picked up at the Scholastic Book Fair. Looks very fun, looks very charming, looks like a perfect like lifting my mood type of read. The next book is called Frizzy. This is one that I will probably put on my school bookshelf. Then the final one is Spy Family Volume 1. My friend, she's a huge manga collection. She's read so much manga. This is one of her favorite mangas. She didn't necessarily recommend it to me, but it sounds interesting enough that I would definitely want to give it a try. My final stack, I'm calling it my summerween stack. It is all horror and spooky books. The first book is actually a graphic novel, could go into the graphic novel stack as well, but we're going to keep it in the summerween. It's called Witches. I picked this up at Goodwill. It looks really cool. I'm always trying to find stuff to read about witches. I absolutely love it. The next book is Slewfoot, which I've heard really cool things about. I love the way the book looks even. So I feel like this is a perfect like Halloween spooky summerween book. The next book is a book I found at a little free library recently, and I had to pick it up, and it's the only one left by Riley Sager. I've heard good things about Riley Sager's books. I don't know if this one is one of the better ones or not, but this would be my introduction to their work. The next book I've had on my shelf for quite some time, I think it was on last 2 summers ago, summer TBR, and I still haven't read it, and it's The Hazelwood. And I have been trying to read this book probably for like 3 years, and I still haven't gotten to it. So it's on my shelf for this summer. I technically could put Hellbent in the other category of series I want to finish because it is technically the second book in the series. But I wanted to kind of keep the spooky vibe going. So I'm keeping it in the summerween category. The last two books on this stack are actually like short story novellas. The first is Graveyard Shift by L.M. Rio. I am a huge fan of If We Were Villains. I loved that book. I haven't read any of M.L. Rio's other works, but they have a new book coming out in later this year that I'm really excited to read. The last one, which I think I'm going to get to next, is What Moves the Dead, which I did not realize was a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher. I didn't realize that. I don't know how it did not register in my brain, but I'm definitely excited to read that. I always love Edgar Allan Poe retellings. I think they're very fun and interesting. That's my summerween spooky stack. And that's it for my summer TBR. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm excited to get into some of these books. I will definitely be sharing my thoughts with you on this channel. So follow, subscribe for, finding out what happens. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.